Hi, welcome to Local Time. I'm your host, Alicia Burgess, and tonight's program is going to be talking about the important but not very much discussed topic about dance etiquette. So joining us is Kat Arias, who's the director and lead instructor of Ferocity Dance Company located in Falls Church. Hi, Kat.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
So tell me a little about how you started dancing, when you started dancing, how long have you been the lead instructor at Ferocity?
I've been dancing about 10 years, and I originally started with ballroom dancing. I was working as a receptionist, and I just saw this beautiful dancing everywhere, and it just took me about a year to get the courage to do it, and then I've been dancing ever since. About maybe 2 years into my dancing, I started helping with like a college team that was just happened to do bachata at the time, and that's kind of how I got introduced to that style of dance, and that's actually what my company focuses on. We've been around 5 years. I'm the only lead instructor there for most of the years. This is my first year where I kind of had new instructors join in, and most of them are students that I've had, for somewhere within the last 3 to 5 years.
So what type of clientele comes to your studio?
We take everybody. Whoever wants to be a part of our family can be. You can be young, older. You can be, you cannot have money. You can have a lot of money. You can like to do ballroom dancing, or you can want to try something new. If you want to just work hard and have a good time, we take everybody.
Awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about the bachata dance, because I don't know that a lot of people know what it is?
Sure. It's a Latin club style dance. It originates from the Dominican Republic. It's done in a measure of 8 counts. Usually you step 3 times, tap 1, and then go in the opposite direction. There's a lot of remix music actually now, so that is starting to grow in popularity. So a lot of these American songs are getting remixed into bachata remixes, so they're adding the bongo beat and everything so you can actually dance to it. So what's really cool about the dance is that it's it's a very traditional style, and it's evolved through the years as the audience gets bigger and younger in some instances.
Great, thank you so much. So I understand that we have some footage so that people can see what bachata really looks like.
Te juro que te siento pequeña y delicada, y es un dulce narcótico maravilloso saber que me amas. Y como en un reflejo estás aquí en mi vida. Es esa magia de tenerte cerca cuando me respiras. Tu cuerpo y mi cuerpo hacen de las alas. En boca a boca no queda un espacio mientras me cuelgo a tu cintura y voy jugando justo a la locura.
Representando Washington, D.C., Ferocity Dance Company. Estamos en el campeonato.
So now I'd like to talk about some practical tips for anyone who's dancing or might be new to dancing or even just is a dancer and wants like a little bit of a refresher. And I think we'll start with something that's very important to me, which is safety and consent, which isn't really talked about with dance as much as it could be, especially with bachata because it's so intimate. So I guess I'll start with saying why is it important to talk about this subject?
It's important for a couple of reasons. I think the main one is that there is a stigma around all kinds of dancing, except for maybe ballroom dancing. And even then, the Latin dances, you know, people kind of look at it a certain way. So bachata is a closer dance, but it still has rules, you know, it still has frame. It's supposed to be enjoyed by both parties. It's not an invitation for an unwanted advance. It's not an invitation to, like, you know, to hook up, and these are the things that most people associate with any kind of club dance, which would be like hustle or West Coast swing, bachata, and sometimes even salsa. It's just the culture around the community around it. And it is, you know, the most important thing to clarify is, you know, most dancers just want to dance. I mean, we go out, we'll literally dance nonstop for 4 hours and go home. You know, most people aren't going out to the club trying to like pick people up or, you know, to do things after the fact. And these are things that usually most non-dancers think that the scene is about. So we do use the word scene because it becomes like a big community. Mm-hmm. But it is important for people that are entering to know, you know, where you don't put your hands. If you like, you know, bachata has about, I would say at least 3 to 4 main styles that are very different from each other. You have the traditional style, which is how it started. We have modern bachata, there's urban, and there's sensual. Sensual, obviously, you can tell from the name of it, is probably the most talked about because it's the newest, for one. But it does play with a lot of negative space in music that comes from like remix music. In these dances, it's super important to understand that the thing I tell all my classes is when you dance sensual or close, it's like inviting somebody to your house. So I'm going to open the door and I'm going to invite you in. But it's the follow, which is what we usually call the girl's part. She decides whether she goes in or not. And if she doesn't want to go in, I don't force her through it. And most instructors, especially the ones that really, you know, care about growing the scene, will tell their students this. So if I don't like to dance traditional, but she does, you know, I have to adapt because you can't just cut a song off or a dance off halfway through because she doesn't want to do what you want to do. And these things would be just more enjoyable, you know, because if girls usually will be very forgiving if it's like the first time. I try to do something, she's like, oh, I'm not interested. Okay, I back off, maybe we just do basic steps the rest of the time. We laugh, we have a good time, and like everything's good. The problem becomes when the leader tries to really like do these moves no matter what. If she doesn't like it, get closer, break her frame, do body manipulations and stuff. These are all things that you can find in those last 3 genres. But when the modern, you know, with people that don't dance see it, it's very uncomfortable. And it is uncomfortable when you can see that a follower doesn't want to do this style.
So you talk about the scene. Do you feel like there are clear differences between spaces that emphasize consent and that sort of respect more than places that don't? And how do dancers sort of find these spaces within like the DMV area? Yeah,
so usually we kind of call it more club culture. So there's the dance scene, which is mainly people that want to actually like really partner dance. Mm-hmm. But then there's the club scene. And the club scene is usually centered around the bar. Mm-hmm. You know, not to say that dance venues that cater to dancers aren't, you know, like all the venues need to survive, obviously, but like a local venues like the Salsa Room, and they have a bar, you know, they focus on this, but they do cater to dancers. They will bring in out-of-state people, they host workshops, they, you know, give a lot of local talent the opportunity to perform, as opposed to like some of the clubs in DC that are mainly just clubs and maybe they have a different genre per floor. The focus for them is capacity, you know, hitting their capacity and selling at the bar. Mm-hmm. So there's not really like any kind of policing force or like professionals that go to these clubs that, you know, to kind of put that pressure on people. And people here, they kind of just listen to the beat and dance, mm-hmm. which is fine, but, you know, it's not the same It's not the same, and unfortunately, most people will look at like a club environment and think that that's what the dance community is, and they're very, very different.
Understood. So if someone's in maybe a situation where they're feeling a little bit uncomfortable, or they're put into like what you were saying about, you know, getting moves made on them that they're really not wanting to do you have any like tips or any sort of like insight into how someone should deal with something like that?
Sure. And also just to clarify, I do want to note, it's not just girls that deal with this. Men also deal with, you know, being the victim of this kind of behavior. It's just most people tend to think it's only women, but, you know, I have heard of instances of it being opposite. When you're the follow, you know, you always have a frame. You have to make use of your frame. You have to put that energy into them so that you always create space. So I've had it before, you know, they'll put their arms too low, or they get way into my space and like I can't even breathe, and like their nose is like right here. And so when that happens, like I put my arm like on the inside edge of their shoulder and I push back. It looks like it's dancing, but really I'm keeping myself at a comfortable space. And that's something that a lot of girls could and should do, because the problem is a lot of girls, they are uncomfortable, but they also don't want to be like mean, or they don't want to be perceived to be a certain way.
Right.
And so then they basically just stay quiet and deal with it. And then, you know, but then at that point you've had 3 minutes of a horrible experience.
Right.
So when you do that, you really dictate, I'm going to make sure that there's this much space. And if you leave that pressure there, then they can't really like get too close.
Physically create that boundary.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also too, if it's someone who's being super forceful about it, at some point you do have to just, you know, thank them for the dance and just walk off the dance floor, because you know, you shouldn't have to stay uncomfortable just to be nice, or, you know, just to be perceived a certain way. If you're uncomfortable, it's usually for a reason, and you do have to like know what your boundaries are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. So we actually have some dancers here in the studio to demonstrate some of what Kat's saying. So without further ado, we're going to have them take it away and show us what not to do and sort of how to try and adjust if you're ever in an uncomfortable dance situation.
Okay, so here we have, you know, the proper way of asking someone to dance. You should always come up to them, be friendly. Don't assume that they want to dance sensual. Yeah, so we always start with a basic step, keeping it friendly. So I was saying earlier that dancing sensual is like inviting someone to your house. So if you want to do something a little bit closer, you can try it. But if she says no, don't force her to do it. She might put up a block with her arm to kind of keep that space and keep it still a friendly dance. Yeah, so here Irving's gonna try again. Maybe he'll put her in a different position. But remember that she already denied, so she's still trying to keep this, you know, a little bit more space in between. Another thing to note is the sensual style is not sexual, you know, it's not about advancing. So some moves are just totally inappropriate to do. You want to avoid anything where you get too close to her body, especially she already told you she doesn't want to do it. Anything where you get too close to the nape of her neck, that is a little bit too intimate. Yeah, so you can tell by her reaction, she's not particularly enjoying this. So leaders, this would be a good time for you to pay attention to your follow. A lot of times they'll tell you things with, you know, their face, how tight, you know, their mouth might be a little bit tight-lipped because they're really uncomfortable. You know, they'll furrow their eyebrows. It's good for here to maybe add some more turn patterns, keep it a little bit more simple so that it stays enjoyable. And hands are never to go down in that third section, yes. It happens more than you would think. But you know, you want to keep them more like on the rib cage, back of the rib cage, never front of the rib cage. Yes. When you keep things at a comfortable distance, it's much more enjoyable for her. Another thing that we want to avoid, you know, this is a social dance, so you have to assume that anyone that you dance with only knows how to do a basic step. So we want to avoid doing things like, you know, caressing your leader, or you want to avoid doing tricks, and you definitely need to avoid doing any kind of lift. It's very unexpected. It's not social to do lifts when you're social dancing, and it can really, really hurt your follow as well as yourself, and it's super uncomfortable. Yeah, so we don't do these things. Yeah, everything, you know, bachata especially is a grounded dance, and where it is perceived to be intimate, there's actually, you know, very friendly but very fun. There's a lot of footwork and things like this that, you know, we don't always see. Don't do big movements. If you're on a crowded dance floor, you have to learn to be able to adjust your steps. So something like this would not be able to be done if you have, 10, 15 couples around you in the same square footage. There we go. Yes, we would adjust and make it much smaller. Yes, and most important, leaders, always listen to your music. So if you have slow part of the music, don't try to make her do something crazy fast. If there's a highlight, make sure that you're able to fully execute. If you can't execute things like dips safely, or you're learning off of just videos and not really understanding how the spine works, don't do it. Ladies, please don't throw yourselves into dips. It happens a lot. And, the leaders have to then kind of like catch you. It can do a lot of stress in their lower back. But if you just keep it simple, it's a lot of fun. Basic steps, basic timing, some nice turns, some connections. That's all you need to have a good dance.
Thank you so much for all your insight. I guess you've covered so much, but if there's anything that you want people to take away, like the number 1 or 2 things, what would that be?
You should include everybody. Dance is for everybody, and the better you get, don't forget, beginners along the way, and always grow your scene by being friendly. That way it's like a big family. And, support the venues, support the organizers that work so hard to make sure that we have something to enjoy.
Awesome. No, that makes a lot of sense. So how can people find you or find Ferocity Dance if they're inclined?
So I do have a website. It's ferocitydance.com. You can also find me on Facebook. Just, type in Ferocity Dance Company, as well as YouTube. Pretty much everything that we do I put online, so you can have a good idea of all the shows and competitions and things that we do.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome. And so you can check out Kat at her website in Ferocity, and we hope you all join the dance scene and community here in the DMV area.
Independent de Washington, D.C. It's on Ferocity